Hey guys, Steve and Howie here with Promar USA. I want to take a little bit of time and dive into our cast nets. There's honestly a lot going on with all the series that are out there, and I kind of want to try to simplify how to find the best cast net for you. The first thing you're going to notice for all of our nets is really breaking down to three components you're going to find on all of our nets. The first one is going to be the mesh size that you're going to see. You'll see that on top of all of our cast nets here. You'll see a label and on the front. The first box you're going to see is going to be the mesh size, like I'm saying. And when I'm referring to mesh size, that is the netting. If you pull it side to side, knot to knot, like for example, this 700 series is a 1/2 inch net. It's going to be a 1/2 inch across from knot to knot. Some of our others are going to be 3/8 inch mesh, for example, and knot to knot when you stretch is going to be that way, and so on for our quarter and so on to our 1/2 and 1 inch nets. The next thing you're going to see is going to be the weight of the net. This is probably the piece that's the most confusing to new anglers out there that are buying their first net. So let's take this 200 series, for example, out of our classic. It's going to come with 3/4 of a pound per foot on the lead line. The lead line is the rope found at the base of the net, honestly what makes the net sink. You'll find on this net 3/4 of a pound of lead weights on that rope. So for example, a 3-foot net is going to have less lead, less rope. It's going to be a lighter net than a 5-foot net would be. The next thing you're going to see on there is really what size bait these nets will catch. That coincides with the size of the mesh. So without getting too deep down that one, for example, a 3/8 inch mesh is going to catch most bait around that 1 to 5 inches. You know, of our smaller mesh, it's going to catch bait that's smaller. It's going to be 1 to say 3 inch mesh, or 1 to 3 inch baits. The last thing you want to do is throw your cast net over a bunch of bait fish. They try to swim through the holes, then get stuck, and then getting those fish out of the net, you end up killing them, defeating the whole purpose of getting bait to begin with. We call that in the fishing world Christmas tree in your net. That's not what you want to do. So now that you have really the three components that make up a cast net, then it really breaks up into, in our opinion, really two series, what we call our Pro series and what we call our Classical series. And I want to jump into the weights here for a little bit because it's another piece that's very confusing and everyone thinks they put plastic weights on nets. They're not. Let me clarify. In our Classic series, you're going to notice in our 200 series, they have true lead weights on there. Great. They sink. They're 3/4 of a pound, just like all of our Classic series nets. You'll notice, for example, in our Kids Can Fish, our Junior Angler series, they look like plastic weights. They're not. It's actually steel weight coated in plastic. It's for a couple of reasons. A, we don't want lead being exposed to kids throwing a cast net. These junior series angler cast nets, most kids, that's their first cast net, do it, and a lot of times they put that lead line in their mouth when they go to throw. We don't want lead in their mouth at all. So the misnomer out there is that net sinks slower than a lead weight. It doesn't. It's that old adage, which weighs more, 100 pounds of feathers or 100 pounds of lead? They both weigh 100 pounds. They both sink the same rate. Also, these Junior Angler series nets and our other 50 series nets for that matter, being covered in plastic, they're much more user-friendly. So I know on my flats boat, my little guy out there, when he goes with me, when he was first throwing a cast net, boy, he just loved to slam that cast net on the deck of my boat, and I was like freaking out, cracking my gel coat kind of stuff. So that plastic cover is much more user-friendly on those guys' boats out there, and also when they're handling it. You know, it's not as tough on your equipment. So don't honestly worry about a sink rate when you see a plastic coated weight versus a lead. They honestly sink the same way. Also what kind of sets these nets apart when they're built is they're simpler. They're a 2-part net. It's basically 2 sides of a net sewn together, making them still easy to throw, but less weight needed to really open them up. There's less net there to kind of get going. So that kind of separates the classic part. That's where I would steer that person that's buying their first, maybe second net out there. Go into that, learn how to throw it, but they're 100% still functional. They catch bait great. Honestly, in my opinion, our 200 series is probably one of the better ones out there for that price point of net. Opens up well, and a lot of guys use them and use them for years and years and years and years. The next series to jump into is the Pro series, okay? What sets these apart is how the nets are made. When you go to our Pro series net, it's a true 6-panel net, meaning it is 6 sides of a net sewn together. Then it has a heavier weight at the base to throw that net. It needs a little bit more oomph, if you will, a little more weight to kind of get it out there. This is where there's going to be sink rates involved. There's going to be, the weights involved versus the mesh. So follow me on this. Our 600 series, which is going to be a 1/4 inch mesh. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny mesh. So this net is ideal, in my opinion, in the winter times or even, early spring when the water's still cold and the bait's small. The bait's under 3 inches. I'm going to use this net so I don't gill the fish, right? But yet I'm still going to have 1.35 pounds of weight to get this net to sink right. The reason why there's so much weight on this net is because there's so much drag. That smaller mesh causes more drag in the water, have a slower sink rate. I'm gonna throw this net probably no more than 4 or 5 foot of water. Ideally is 2 to 3 foot of water, like on the grass flats, found throughout Florida in the wintertime when the greenbacks or whitebait is tiny. I'm gonna throw this net on, it's gonna get down to them. Now, bait gets a little bit bigger, moves a little deeper, water warms up. I would then go to a 200 Pro series. Just like you heard before, you heard a 200 series and our classical series. Difference is one's a pro, one's not. Probably the 2 series we get the most questions about what's the difference. It's the weight of the net. The mesh is the same size, but it's a true 6-panel net. And this one's gonna come with 1.35 pounds of lead on the base of this net, helping it sink faster. So you can throw this net a little bit deeper, up to 6-7 foot if you wanted to. Now, going to the next step up, you can go to like a 1/2 inch mesh. A lot of guys will throw our 700 series net on the beach, for example, or on markers. So you'll find a lot of bait suspended in early summer on the beach, and the bait will get big and it gets super, super smart. And they know the second they hear a net hit the water, if that net doesn't sink fast, they're gonna swim underneath the net and take off. You're not gonna get them. So yes, it still has the same amount of weight. Most guys are like, oh, it should be lighter. It's gonna sink just as fast with that bigger mesh. You want it to sink as fast as possible, even though it has a 1/2 inch mesh on there, because that bait, you're throwing it in deeper water a lot of times to catch larger stuff there. Something else that separates our 2 series of nets is honestly how you throw it. How you're gonna throw a pro series of net, really 8 foot up, is gonna be different than you're throwing our classical series in a 3, 4, 5, or even 6 footer. How you load it and throw it is what's totally different. So to incorporate that, we took a lot of time and made some step-by-step instructions that are gonna come in every single cast net we sell, with colored pictures on how to load that net and throw the net. And we actually break it down into really 2 sizes. You'll see that on the instructions. Along with that, there's also a QR code that you can actually see step-by-step video on how to load these nets, throw them with the best accuracy. I will tell you, do not buy your first net that's a classic series and run out to the water and start throwing immediately. That net's gonna get wet and it's gonna get heavy, and you're gonna feel defeated pretty quick. That's not opening up for you. The first thing I would do is, once you take this net out of the box, take it in your front yard, take it to a park, take it to a nice grassy area where you can practice multiple times before you get good at it. It's almost kind of like that first time you probably saw your first fish, you were targeting it out there and you went to make that perfect cast and you blew it. But when you're practicing, you're dead on. It's the same thing when it comes to throwing a cast net. Practice on several times in a grass area and really target where you're wanting to throw it. So when it comes time to you have to actually put that net over a pot of fish, you can. So practice kind of makes perfect on there. Our step-by-step instructions are to help you do that right, along with the video. I'm sure there's other questions out there I missed. We're always here to answer those questions. Feel free to call us here at the office, reach out through email, whatever you need. But hopefully this information will help you determine what cast net's best for you the next time you're in the market. Thanks for watching.